The lower Willow Creek drainage in eastern Oregon's Malheur County consists of 32,000 acres of irrigated farmland, along with some 10,000 plus acres of dry upland range. The majority of this land is privately held, along with some leased BLM parcels that are used for additional cattle forage. Irrigated acres are primarily used to grow forage crops, to provide irrigated pasture, and intense row crop farming. Non-irrigated land is utilized primarily for raising beef cattle and to provide habitat for deer, elk, and antelope, plus upland game birds like pheasant, quail, and chukar. Local and migrating geese and duck are also prominent in the area. Willow Creek is part of the Malheur River tributary system, which in turn feeds the Snake River. In the hills above the Willow Creek drainage is the North Fork of the Malheur River and the Beulah Reservoir. This reservoir is critical for many reasons. It provides water not only to Willow Creek, but to other drainages as well. The Beulah Reservoir is also inhabited by the endangered bull trout, among other species of fish. The reservoir is also crucial to the survival of local wildlife and migratory birds passing through the area. The cattle industry in the Northwest is well known, and the lower Willow Creek drainage has the second largest concentration of beef cattle in Oregon. Beef from this area is shipped worldwide. Willow Creek is also home to a significant number of generational family farms and ranches, which fuel the economy of local towns like Vail and Ontario. In the early 1990s, the Malheur watershed was evaluated by the Department of Environmental Quality. In that study, which included Willow Creek, the drainage was found to have excessive amounts of nutrients and E. coli, resulting in a DEQ 303D listing. In response, residents of the lower Willow Creek drainage chose to form a proactive task force to begin restoration of the drainage. Actions to date include continued water quality monitoring, the elimination of tailwater from irrigation fields, and the restoration and protection of the riparian area along Willow Creek, its tributaries, and local wetlands. The group also began educational forums and implemented best management practices for local landowners. The improvements continue in the upland areas. By reseeding damaged ground with desirable habitat and forage plant life, erosion is held to a minimum and local wildlife are benefiting. Residents are fencing fragile areas around stream beds, building fenced open land pastures to rotate livestock, and are installing an efficient watering distribution system for livestock and wildlife. The residents also hired a watershed coordinator to educate landowners and implement environmentally sound farming and ranching techniques. Continued water monitoring identified two major concerns in the Willow Creek drainage. The first being higher than normal levels of bacteria and excessive sediment from irrigation-induced erosion.
This is an irrigation lateral, a ditch, if you will, that was put in the 1960s, and you can see that the ditch is well above the soil surface here. It's a loss of almost 4 feet of topsoil because of the irrigation practices. And what happened was there was a lot of water applied at the top of this field in order for the water to make it all the way to the bottom, and it just carried the sediment away. When everything's done right, when you're using the very best management practices possible with furrow irrigation, you can expect to lose up to a cubic yard per year per acre. Now if you times that, if you look at this field where this lateral was put in 50 years ago, you take that cubic yard times those 50 years times 80 acres, and on a field this size in that length of time you can lose 4,000 cubic yards off of that field.
The DEQ chose E. coli as their primary bacteria indicator for the following reason. E. coli is a risk to human health. E. coli is naturally present in the environment, but the levels found in Willow Creek were a concern. The primary source for E. coli is waste from warm-blooded animals, including wildlife and livestock, plus manure-based fertilizers. This waste is introduced primarily through runoff and increases significantly as the drainage flows downstream. The Willow Creek Group has acted independently to limit livestock access to surface water, brought confined animal feeding operations into state and federal compliance, and limited both natural and irrigated runoff to Willow Creek through the use of holding ponds, filter strips, sprinkler irrigation system installations, and wetlands. Excessive sediment loads are caused by irrigation-induced erosion and poor riparian conditions. Sediment is a concern because it carries nutrients into the surface water. Excessive nutrients contribute to extraordinary algae blooms within the watershed, causing a lowering of available oxygen for aquatic wildlife. Phosphorus is the primary nutrient found in this sediment. Phosphorus is both naturally occurring and an added fertilizer ground supplement used in farming operations. The steps taken by the Willow Creek Group to date are primarily concerned with improving irrigation methods to reduce return flow. The first method is a pump-action water reclamation system that recycles irrigation water rather than allowing it to run off into Willow Creek. The second method was to encourage the use of polyacrylamide, or PAM. PAM is an environmentally sound water-soluble agent that attracts waterborne soil, binding it together and helping prevent it from exiting the field. The third, and by far the most expensive solution, has been to pipe irrigation delivery systems and install sprinkler systems. This action is 70% efficient in water delivery and eliminates runoff, thus eliminating the problem of nutrient-enriched water in the watershed. Another method being used is drip irrigation. Drip irrigation can only be used on crops that are not disturbed during the irrigation season. Drip irrigation maximizes water usage and increases production significantly with the right crop, but must be replaced each season, which is economically unfeasible for most applications.
They've changed application procedures and the way the field is irrigated, that sort of thing.
Through the implementation of these water conservation practices, the Willow Creek Group uses substantially less acre-feet of water per year. And because of Oregon water law, these water savings cannot be used to irrigate additional acres. In an average water year, these water savings will be available to substantially improve the winter habitat for the endangered bull trout by providing a much larger pool for the trout, which in turn helps Beulah Reservoir fill to capacity earlier each year. The restoration of riparian areas along Willow Creek to achieve its proper functioning condition was undertaken by the group through the control of noxious weeds and the establishment of desirable vegetation such as willows, trees, and other plantings. Wetlands have been protected from livestock through fencing, allowing the wetlands to perform their natural function of filtering impurities from surface water and providing habitat for wildlife. In areas where improvements have been instituted, the results have been immediate and impressive. Monitoring and testing of Willow Creek continues. The water's been saved and runoff has been reduced or eliminated. Willow Creek and other wetlands in these areas are thriving. It's the Willow Creek Group's intention to become the model of achievement when watersheds are repaired or restored wherever farming, ranching, or penned livestock operations exist.
As far as realizing the change in water quality, absolutely. They've taken a huge first step. There's a lot of very good things going on in the watershed. It's going to take some time. It took some time for us to get into this condition, and it's going to take some time to get back out. But I'm totally convinced. We've already seen a reduction in sediment. We will see a reduction in phosphorus. The bacteria levels in many cases are going down, and I'm sure that they'll continue to drop throughout the watershed.
With adequate funding, the entire Willow Creek project could be completed within 10 years' time and provide extensive knowledge, research, and resources to other groups attempting to restore watersheds in their area. In order to complete the Willow Creek project, it's imperative that funding begin immediately. Piping the laterals is the primary focus because it's very invasive, and it must begin prior to irrigation season. By partnering resources from various districts, agencies, groups, and private landowners, the project becomes less burdensome financially on individual sources. For example, piping the irrigation system could be funded through private landowners, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board, and the Vail, Orchard, Warm Springs, and Owyhee irrigation districts. Riparian, wetland, and bull trout habitat improvements could be funded through private landowners, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board. The Burns Paiute Tribe of Oregon, the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation, the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, Pheasants Forever, and local chambers of commerce. Irrigation management could be funded through the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and private landowners. Technical assistance for the project could be provided by the Oregon Department of Agriculture, the Bureau of Land Management, the Malheur Watershed Council, the Malheur County Soil and Water Conservation District, Western Watersheds, the Malheur County Court, the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, the Oregon State University Extension, and the Regional OSU Experimental Station.
They want to turn their property over to the next generation in better condition. but they've got to hold on to it in order to do that. And so funding, if there is not a good source of funding, then it's just not a risk that they can take. They would lose the property and the culture that goes with it.
By strategically matching landowners, federal, state, and local agencies together, it becomes increasingly easier to fund the Willow Creek project over its lifespan. With the combined expertise, in-kind services, and funding, the expectation is to bring the whole of Willow Creek into compliance with federal and state mandates, including the Clean Water Act of 1972 and the Oregon Agriculture Water Quality Management Act. This project would remove Willow Creek from the DEQ 303D listing by bringing it into alignment with the DEQ's total maximum daily load allowable of Willow Creek's contribution to the Malheur River system. In conclusion, the Willow Creek Task Force is seeking funding to complete restoration of the drainage and to become the model for other problem areas in the West. Issues facing watersheds are not insurmountable and can be solved in a relatively short period of time with understanding and cooperation from all interested parties. The residents, ranchers, and farmers of Willow Creek Basin have chosen to become highly proactive in solving issues regarding Willow Creek's environmental concerns. They realize this process accomplishes several things. First, it protects the environment. Second, it helps prevent further state and federal involvement. And third, it protects and preserves a lifestyle that's a part of the very fabric and history of the American West.